be good for him. So
Yeah.
if I do something, just say we'll redo it or whatever. Yeah.
Imagine how much better this would be if there weren't loud conversations.
Do you live in the Highlands now?
No, we wanted to get a house, and we looked around for the houses there, and you couldn't find a house that didn't need something and wasn't 100 years old for under $200,000 with no garage and needed windows and a roof, and all the plumbing was old, and so was the electric, and the rooms were broom closets. So we were like, we looked at a few different houses, and we never could find one big enough. So we branched out to J-Town. And we love it. All the houses are built in the 1960s, all brick, mostly ranches with full basements, 2-car garage, nice sized yards. You're not right next to the next person. You know, you've got a little bit of space. Taxes and insurance are cheap. It's great, and they hold their value. A lot of senior citizens. So it's quiet, street lights, sidewalks. It's near a school, and they've got playground equipment. So it was a happy meeting. Plus, it's a good location where it's at Hurstbourne. It's just right off Hurstbourne, so you can get right on the interstate, or you can head downtown. We're only 13 minutes from where we used to live in the Highlands, so it's awesome.
Good.
I like it. You live in the Highlands?
Yeah.
It's nice. We miss it.
Okay, I'm ready.
You
may proceed
You
now.
weren't rolling for that? That was like the best stuff. If he were running for office, I mean, Brian. So when you look back on this whole experience, what's Brian's secret? Why is he good at what he does? I'm going to send you away.
Stop.
I mean, I got a lawyer.
He's in the room right now. The roof's going to pop, but I don't think we would have gotten custody without him. I really don't, honestly. And I know you're getting a big head on that, but it's true. I've never heard of a lawyer take a personal interest in someone's case like Brian took in ours. One-on-one. Call me anytime if you have a question. If you're uncertain about something, just let me know. Always asking about pickups and drop-offs, weekend after weekend. Calling just, out of the blue for no reason other than to say, how's, Paul David's mom behaving? How did everything go? How's everything been going in school? Caring about, our son one-on-one. That speaks so many things to me, for him, because I honestly don't think that we would have gotten custody if it wasn't for all his hard work, everything that he put in, all the time he took. So we were just really blessed.
Why would he be a good judge?
Because, stop. There's lots of reasons.
We got all day.
Just do noise that candy and turn it down downstairs.
Are you getting any of that?
Just a little music or something.
Okay. Okay, ask me again.
Why would Brian be a good judge?
Well, first of all, he's honest and fair, and I'm sure he would take everything in court based on what's best for the kids, and not, getting into the personal issues and what he said, she said, or anything trivial. Because really, I think that's what being in family court's about, is what is best for the kids, and that's what he did with me. Working with me, he really saw how much I could help him. As far as his grades being improved, as far as him having structure at home, as far as having extra time for him to go to tutoring and work with him one-on-one, because my son's mother does work so much. It's hard for her to be able to do those things. And I had an environment where, I could always be there, and he saw that. And he never gave up. And I think that he's dedicated to, just like being dedicated to me, I think he'd be dedicated to, being a judge, and every day, trying to find out and decide, what is best for the kids, just like he did with me.
You know, I really don't have anything else to ask him. I'm honest. I like these people you found. They talk in paragraphs and they're really good. That's good. How's your kid doing now?
Awesome. He's doing great. He's on a roll.
How old is he?
He's 13.
13?
Yeah, he'll be 14 in July. But he's on a roll. Well, a little background. Before we got custody, his mother was, because she, is sent to different places for trainings. To be in the military, you move around. He would be living with his grandmother or his aunt, and he'd have to go to different schools. So he would go to a different school for 6 months with his grandmother.
That was the thing that was strange that John just didn't realize. The mother would say, well, he's not with me, so he's going with my sister or his grandmother. And that was just crazy.
Yeah. And I told her, I always, when she was going to be deployed, she told me she was going to stick him with her mother. And I said, no, you're not. I said, he's going to live with me. And she said, no, he's not. He's going to stay with the mother. And I said, no, your mother's already raised your children. She's done her job. I'm a father. It's my responsibility to take care of our child. If you are, going to be serving your country, that's great. But, you need to look at what's best for him. And that's what it all boiled down to for him, was that. And that's why she never would agree to it. She never would say he doesn't want to live with you or he doesn't need to live with you, because she would rather him suffer than him stay with me. She was so angry at me because, when we'd broken up back in the day, she always thought of him as a package deal. He's with me. You're either with me or you're against me, and he's with me, so you don't get him. You don't ever get him. And she'd always use him as a tool or a pawn. And it was really hard. It was really difficult. And it wasn't until I got with Brian and, I didn't know what all my rights were. I always thought, visitation and, I always felt that, the mother, has most of the, the power. And he resided with her. That, she basically would tell me things like, if I wanted to, I could take you to court, and I could, squeeze every penny out of you, even though I was already, paying child support. Don't be difficult with me, or I'll make the time sharing difficult with you. When it's your weekend, I'll just say, you don't get him. You come to get him, I won't let you have him. I won't open the door. So you better be nice to me. She'd do that all the time. Until I got with Brian, and Brian told me, she can't do that. Don't believe anything she says. You have rights too. Even though we haven't gone to court, even though it's not written, in stone as far as you being there, you have rights. You're his father, and you've always had rights. You just need to use them.
So how do you get through this? I mean, as I said this morning when we were talking to the woman, I said, I live a completely uninteresting life. And
so do I.
Feel so much stress that I just can barely get out of bed in the morning. And I've never faced something like that. And it just, how do you wander through that and come out whole?
Well, because he worked so hard, it made me want to work harder. I had to show up to so many court appearances in the morning. I had to use so many vacation days. I worked night shifts at the time, and it was hard for me. We had to be up there, 8:30, for prep, and then 9 o'clock you had to be at the family court. I was motivated. I was motivated because he never once, said, things aren't looking good, or, this might not go our way. He was in it the whole time. He was my strength, because he wasn't giving up on us, and I wasn't going to give up. And he saw that I wanted it. He saw that, I really did want what was best for my kid. And when it comes down to your kids, there's nothing you won't do for your kids. There's nothing any parent wouldn't. But I wasn't going to give up. I wasn't going to give up on my kid because I didn't want him to get, lost, slip through the cracks.
See, this is one of Tom's television secrets. You always get the best stuff after you say the interview's over.
I knew you were. I knew you were doing it.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm done. Yes?
No, I was just going to say, you're good. No, go ahead. What?
Anything you feel like you need to add, or what were you going to ask?
Let me think 1 second. Well, just that what he did and me getting custody, to me, is like a miracle for that to happen. And the funny thing is, even after he went to, after we got custody, she was so mad she wouldn't even pay child support. We had to take her back to court for child support because she was so angry she wouldn't pay. She was tough stuff.
Doesn't the Army sort of discourage that kind of behavior?
Well, yeah, and when Bride called her superior officer, and her superior officer found out about it, that had a coaching with her, it fixed everything right up.
Brian called the Army.
I sure did. That's how it right up.
Hi, could I get the number of the Army, please?
I don't know if he's told you some stories, but he used to say, I said she's tough, and he's like, oh, I've had some tough bitches in my day, you've got no idea.
Yeah, we probably won't put that in.
And but when we got halfway through this, he was like, you're right. She's the biggest bitch I've ever seen. There's no one like her. She is. Wow, you picked a good one.
She's great.
She bosses people around. She loves it.
What does she do?
She just got back from Bagram, and she was over all of the helicopter deployments, deliveries. As far as we need, X amount of things to go to this base. We need X amount of things delivered here. She was over all the copters.
So she really is used to bossing people.
Oh yeah.
And she's dreadful. And I don't think Judge Gardner had seen anything like her. And the part that we didn't talk about is she appealed the case after we won. So John had to pay to take it to the Court of Appeals. That's one of the custody cases I dealt with in the Court of Appeals was John's because the bitch just wouldn't stop.
We went to a custodial advisor. We had to pay big money for that because that way someone was set aside to have therapy sessions with me and then her, and then me interacting with Paul David, and then her interacting with Paul David, and then Paul David. This went on for months and months and months, and then she writes this big, huge 30, 40-page dissertation on who she feels is best for the child's needs. And she was a man-hater. Just plain and simple. They picked her. They chose who they wanted the custodial evaluator to be, and she was a man-hater. She was tough, and when everything was said and done, even she said the child's needs are best met with the father.
I had a friend who got married, and they went on a honeymoon, and they came back, and 4 days later she left him. And he wanted to try to rescue it, and so he said, let's go to therapy, and she picked a therapist, and this was in Southern California, and so she picked some man-hater, a woman who just was, radical feminist, everything like that. And they went and they sat down for the first session with both of them. And then they left, and his phone rang like 20 minutes later. And it was the therapist saying, you don't need to come in anymore. You're not the one who's fucked up. It's just like, wow, when she makes that judgment.
But she did try to screw us in the end, the custodial evaluator, because she said that his needs were best met with us, but when it came to time sharing, because she knew kind of the way things were going to go, that, she knew saying this, that the needs are best met with the child, that the judge was waiting to see that. So there was, it was 99% certain that we were going to get custody then, for certain. She said in the end, as far as time sharing, he should be with the mother all summer. Even though he needs a routine, he needs structure. That would mess him up completely because he has to read through the summer. We do workbooks in the summer because kids, all kids, but special needs kids, if they don't use it, they lose it. So as soon as he'd get out in June, June 1st, June 2nd, if he didn't stay on it, when he came back in August, he'd be lost. He would forget a lot of things. He wouldn't retain anything. He'd forget a lot of things. Well, she wouldn't work with him. She wouldn't work with him one-on-one. She wouldn't read with him. She would say this to me all the time. John, he gets enough work at school. Let a kid be a kid. She'd just fill him full of pizza and, candy bars and stick him in front of the TV, and the TV would babysit him.
So she doesn't have a real concept of what he's dealing with.
She just is focused more on her career than she is on what's best for him. And that's what it always boiled down to. And even she knows it, and it took her 2 years after I got custody to call me and agree. And she, one day when we were doing child sharing, and she said, come pick him up at 5, she said, we were talking about him and how good he'd been doing. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And she said, he really is better with you. I can see it. When he's with me, he's very, he says, yes, sir, or yes, ma'am, please and thank you. And, he minds me, and I can really see, a big change in him since he's been living with you. But she used to do this. He'd miss school a lot, because she would oversleep. So when we went to court, we had a lot of ammunition to use against her. It wasn't nothing for him to miss, 17 days a year or be late 14 times a year. And my kid's never sick. He's never sick. He's sick maybe once a year. I've never seen a kid like this. He just doesn't get sick. And it was because of her. He missed homework. He missed tests. His grades were C's and D's since he's been living with us. He misses maybe one day of school a year because he really is sick. He made honor roll again and again and again and again. His reading level was 3 years behind what his grade level was. Now his reading level's 1 year behind what his grade level is. It's leaps and bounds. And I never would have gotten that opportunity if it hadn't been for Brian. So, made a big difference. And I'm not saying that for the camera. I'm saying that because that's really what he did on a personal level.
My whole opinion of Brian has changed after this.
I could tell. I could just see it in your face.
I always thought of him as just sort of a...
Can you help me do one thing, and we won't tell Michael that you have to do it?
What? I gotta move shit?
Just one thing.
Motherfucker. Sorry, the kids are in there. Yes, I'll help you move shit.
Just one thing. I can't get it up.
Got me all. As long as I'm not gonna get dirty.